Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, it is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today.
It was supposed to be a ceremonial address, one of those polished, scripted royal ceremonies that softly mark a new chapter without deviating too much from the script. Diplomats, chiefs of state, senior royals, and media elites have all received invitations. Cameras were positioned. Seating charts were triple-checked by palace staff. The press described it as an official reaffirmation of unity and continuity within the monarchy. However, what happened inside the glittering corridors of Buckingham Palace that day was anything from routine. King Charles III entered the stage looking every inch the stoic sovereign, polished, serene, and majestic. But behind the surface, something had changed. The tension was palpable. Even seasoned palace observers saw a perceptible rigidity in Camilla's stance, an uneasiness she couldn't quite hide. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood just behind the rows of top officials, stately and tranquil, seemingly ignorant of the historical dynamite that was about to go off. As Charles began to speak, his words were familiar: homage to Queen Elizabeth, recognition of the late monarch's legacy, and pleas for togetherness in the midst of worldwide turbulence. But then, after a pause that seemed to freeze the room, he uttered something unexpected. "It is time I formally recognize the woman who embodies the future of the crown, Catherine, Princess of Wales." Gasps echoed across the hall. Camilla's visage did not simply falter, it collapsed. William blinked but stayed composed. Catherine did not move. And with that, everything changed. Charles wasn't just saying pleasant words. What he said next made headlines throughout the world, smashing news feeds and igniting social media. "In accordance with my late mother's private wishes and my personal conviction, I declare Catherine, the Princess of Wales, the rightful future Queen Consort of the United Kingdom." The cameras cut away. Inside the castle, pandemonium silently grew. Outside, royal admirers cried, yelled, and celebrated simultaneously. Camilla disappeared from view. What led to this situation? How did a lady formerly known as the other woman end up publicly dethroned by the man she had stood with for decades? And why did Charles choose now to defy royal convention in such a dramatic, irrevocable manner? This is not simply the tale of a speech. It's the story of a hidden letter, a shattered partnership, a family split by duty, and the final naming of a queen in waiting. Catherine did not demand the crown, but the crown demanded her. And Camilla, she may still wear the jewelry, but as of that moment, she no longer donned the throne. The air at Buckingham Palace's East Gallery was dense with formality. Velvet curtains draped heavily on the walls. The chamber was packed with gold-trimmed seats, each one meticulously organized, and each visitor properly positioned in accordance with centuries of royal etiquette. Diplomats, Commonwealth leaders, aristocrats, and senior royals had all assembled, expecting King Charles to give a formal pronouncement about the monarchy's future, something ceremonial, symbolic, and safe. And sat opposite him, Queen Camilla, clad in her green sash and diamond tiara, looked to be the embodiment of stability. She grinned and nodded. She thought she had received a briefing. The palace had told her that it was a thank you address, commemorating the late Queen Elizabeth and reaffirming the family's commitment to continuity. Camilla had no idea what was going to happen. In truth, she had planned a post-event celebration guest list, believing her job was safe. Then Charles approached the microphone. His voice resounded across the auditorium, firm and measured. "Today, we honor the enduring legacy of my mother, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II," the president said. "Her reign was long, her dedication absolute, and her love for this country eternal." Polite applause ensued. So yet nothing unusual has occurred. But, he added, with every generation comes a moment where we must not only honor the past, but look to the future. The room moved, the shoulders straightened. Catherine sat farther down the first row close to William, cast a subtle glance at her husband. He did not move. And then it occurred. It is time I formally recognize the woman who embodies the future of the crown, Catherine, Princess of Wales. There was quiet, sharp. Suddenly, Camilla's smile stopped in mid-expression. Her hand, which had been resting comfortably on the armrest of her chair, gradually curled inward. Charles did not hesitate. In accordance with the private wishes of my late mother, and after long reflection, I wish to declare before the nation and the Commonwealth that Catherine, Princess of Wales, is the rightful future Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. One diplomat let out a single audible gasp. Several journalists rushed to whisper into their phones, and the camera feeds, which were shown live on BBC and Sky News, cut suddenly to external pictures of Buckingham Palace, allowing producers time to comprehend what had just been stated. Inside, the weight of the situation settled like thunder. Camilla, clearly terrified, glanced at Charles for any indication that this was all a mistake, a prank, or a misinterpretation of the script, but he averted her look. He wasn't finished. This choice was taken with confidence, not in hurry or controversy. Confidence in the monarchy's future, which must be founded on trust rather than tradition. Catherine has won the nation's affection, admiration, and most importantly, belief. That final word, believe, struck like a dagger. Camilla carefully grabbed her handbag, not out of vanity, but as a reaction. Her entire sense of security, identity, and place in the royal order had just been shattered, in public, in real time. As Charles finished his address, a spontaneous round of applause erupted, though not universal. Some clapped, uncertain. Many people remained sat in startled silence. And Catherine? She bent her head, receiving the accolade without ceremony. However, the moment did not belong to her. It belongs to betrayal. Within minutes, news organizations throughout the world broke the story. King Charles publicly crowns Kate, Camilla sidelined in shock move. The end of a queen? Camilla absent following Charles's stunning declaration. It was her moment. Catherine crowned in spirit before the crown itself. Outside the palace gates, throngs who had assembled out of curiosity were now yelling in amazement and joy. "Long live Queen Kate!" echoed from the barriers. Camilla disappeared behind closed doors. Her seat was left unoccupied during the concluding parade. And while the royalty is accustomed to drama, this was history being altered live. A queen consort dethroned not by parliament or scandal, but by the one person whose support she had most relied on, her own husband. What motivated King Charles to give such a speech? What caused this unexpected flip of loyalties? As is customary at the palace, the response began with a long-buried secret and a letter that should never have been discovered. In the hours after the king's loud address, the palace was no longer a symbol of eternal peace. It was a pressure cooker of whispered conversations, slammed doors, and frantic phone calls. But in one wing of Buckingham Palace, a storm had already broken, and its name was Camilla. According to a senior courtier who observed the aftermath, Camilla departed the event not with regal elegance, but with eyes clouded with rage and betrayal. She didn't talk with anyone. She did not even wait for Charles. She just walked out, stiff, shaking, as if she was holding back tears with each step, the insider said. Camilla had closed herself within her own rooms in less than an hour. Royal aides were dispatched to reassure her, but they were turned away. One was allegedly told, "Tell His Majesty he's been crowned a duchess, not a queen." But what transpired beyond those golden doors exposed the true extent of the harm. Insiders report a confrontation between Charles and Camilla that evening, which was anything but formal. Camilla was supposed to have trapped Charles in his study, her voice shaking with wrath. "You gave me this crown! You swore I had nothing to worry about!" Charles, the Stoic, reportedly responded coldly, "I offered you my allegiance. They never gave you theirs." That single statement crushed something in her. Years of carefully crafted public image, rehabilitated press, softened storylines, carefully controlled charity appearances were smashed by the weight of one fact. She wore the title but never won hearts. The press pounced like dogs in blood. The tabloids blared. Camilla humiliated as Charles names Kate the future queen. Queen in name only? Camilla retreats from public duties. Photos of her being carried away to Ray Mill House, her own rural house, surfaced mere hours later. She did not wave. She did not smile. She didn't even recognize the cameras, which was unusual for a lady who had spent years perfecting her public image. Even more telling, her royal calendar. In the days after the news, every engagement was either rescheduled or discreetly canceled. Garden parties, receptions, and ribbon cuttings were all abandoned. What is the palace's official excuse? Personal rest. But royal observers knew better. "She was taken aback," remarked one royal biographer. "Not just the speech, but the understanding that she was never genuinely welcomed. She spent decades climbing the ladder, only to discover the summit step was made of glass. But the humiliation did not end there. Palace employees saw slight yet noticeable changes. Her name was deleted from the briefing memorandum related to succession preparation. An internal conversation about redesigning Clarence House was put on indefinite hold. Her long-standing push for increased acknowledgement of osteoporosis awareness, her late mother's cause, lost priority position on royal communications. Many others believed Camilla was being erased one appearance and privilege at a time. What about King Charles' silence? Deafening. He did not openly defend her. He did not provide an explanation. No united statement, no damage control, just quiet, which in royal terms says more than any speech ever could. Camilla may have once thought she had cemented her place in history. But after that day, the truth was louder than any tiara could shine. She was never intended to be queen. She just wore the title until the one who bestowed it took it away. The letter gives him a choice. Maintain peace with Camilla, or make a step that might safeguard the monarchy's legacy. Before King Charles ever approached a microphone, before the world witnessed Camilla's crown quiver in real time, there was a moment of revelation. A moment that altered the trajectory of royal history, not in front of cameras, but in a quiet corner of a dusty archive room at Windsor Castle. Weeks before the now infamous palace address, Charles was conducting what aides called a legacy audit, a private review of personal and royal correspondence left by Queen Elizabeth II. The monarch, known for her meticulous organization, had left behind dozens of letters, journals, and sealed notes intended for moments after her death. One such mail, written in her own perfect handwriting, simply stated, "To my heir, when the time is right." Charles unlocked it himself. He discovered something considerably more serious than a direction or an order. A confession of sorts, a last hope. In the carefully phrased, handwritten letter, Queen Elizabeth provided more than emotion. She offered the truth, the type that only a king could have, and only a son could completely comprehend. "I have watched Catherine closely through the years," she told me. "In her, I see the same virtues that anchored my own reign: dignity, silence when the world roared, and a deep sense of duty unmarred by ambition." Then came the phrase that stopped Charles completely. "She represents the future. The monarchy will survive, but only with ladies like her." In a gentler, more careful section, the Queen revealed her honest opinions about Camilla. "While I welcomed her, I've noticed that the public's acceptance is polite but brittle. Time may dull scandal, but it does not always foster affection. Charles read it twice, then the third time. It was not an attack. It was a monarch's calibrated viewpoint, honed over a lifetime of observing public opinion ebb and turn. Elizabeth had been through scandal, abdication, and Diana's rise and fall. She knew what it took to defend an institution, even from within. Charles, shaken, did not sleep that night. The next morning, he scheduled a private meeting with Princess Anne and Prince William, rather than Camilla herself. Only 3 members of the royal family genuinely recognized the significance of both past and the future. They read the letter together. Anne was the first to speak. "It sounds like Mother," she stated plainly, "and she wasn't often wrong." William, for his part, remained quiet. However, the agony in his eyes was evident. For years, he had seen his wife stay poised under scrutiny, pushed into Diana's shadow, and frequently overlooked as Camilla took center stage. "She didn't ask for this," he said, "but if it's what the monarchy needs, she'll rise." Later that week, Charles spoke with palace historians. Their conclusion was unanimous. The monarchy had lasted centuries not via rigorous succession, but by timely course correction. People needed to believe again, and believing could not be commanded. It needed to be earned. At that point, Charles was presented with the most personal and terrible decision of his reign. He could keep Camilla safe, his wife and partner, in establishing a life after decades of scandal. Or he might accept the unsaid truth that his mother had left him. Duty must come before pleasure. He selected the crown, and from that point forward, the speech was no longer an idea. It was a purpose, the final act of legacy. Elizabeth had silently prayed for it, and Charles would eventually deliver. Catherine never begged for a crown. And yet, on that momentous day, the weight was put softly on her shoulders, not with jewels and ceremony, but with a single remark spoken in front of the world. Catherine did not flinch when King Charles called her the rightful future queen consort. She did not look around the room or get to her feet. She merely dropped her head, hands folded in her lap, her gaze unwavering. That serenity, that steadfast elegance under strain, revealed all the world needed to know. However, the cameras failed to record the intimate agony that preceded it all. Catherine was summoned to a private meeting with the king only 48 hours before the royal function. According to palace insiders, Margaret was noticeably taken aback when Charles announced his intention to formally proclaim her as Queen Consort-in-Waiting. She thought he had called her in to discuss a charity initiative, one assistant said. What he told her instead shook her to her core. Her initial reaction was to say no. According to those close to Catherine, she voiced real concern about overshadowing Camilla and becoming a symbol of division rather than togetherness. She'd spent more than a decade balancing tradition and modernity, always smiling, stable, and never straying too far ahead. She was liked not because she sought the spotlight, but because she did not. "If this will cause harm to the family, I want no part in it," she allegedly informed Charles. But the king, holding Queen Elizabeth's letter in his hands, told her something few had ever heard him say. "This is just what my mother wanted. And deep down, you know it is also what the people want." Catherine did not instantly agree. She sought advice from William. The two went through the royal grounds late in the dark, whispering quietly away from the walls that always seemed to listen. In the end, William's remarks shifted the balance. "You have already been bearing the crown, Kate. It's time the world sees it." Catherine looked peaceful and elegant on the day of the announcement, wearing a light blue dress with no flashy jewelry and her hair tied back in a modest chignon. As she entered the hall, her gaze briefly met Camilla's. There was no animosity and no victory, only profound and terrible knowledge. Catherine remained still during Charles's momentous speech, save for the time William softly grabbed for her hand and squeezed it firmly, yet reassuringly. It was a rare public expression of affection, but it said volumes. She was not climbing alone. She had earned her rise, one tragedy at a time. Catherine stuck to her timetable after the event, while others sought to manage the situation. She went to a children's hospice the next day, smiling lovingly as she knelt to welcome little patients, posed for photographs, and listened to stories. She made no comment about the king's declaration. There are no interviews. There are no subtle references to the drama unfolding in the headlines. And once again, silence spoke more than words. Across the United Kingdom and abroad, headlines altered overnight. Kate Middleton, crowned by grace. The people's queen, made official. Catherine takes the throne without taking a step. Catherine had done something exceptional in an era of controversy and spectacle. She ascended without ever reaching. She did not grab the crown. It found her. And she wore it the only way she knew how, with humility, courage, and a subtle fire that the world couldn't miss. Behind every royal show, speech, and glossy portrait, there are power brokers, those who influence history via strategy rather than noise. In the event of Charles' dramatic public crowning of Catherine, two figures stood silently behind the scenes, tugging the strings, Princess Anne and Prince William. While the king may have said the words that deposed Camilla and elevated Catherine, it was Anne and William who provided him the courage and cover to do so. For years, both have viewed Camilla's rising prominence within the palace with mistrust. Anne, the ever-pragmatic Princess Royal, never really embraced Camilla into the family. Their connection had always been official, not affectionate. Anne's lifelong allegiance to Queen Elizabeth and strong admiration for Diana made it difficult, if not impossible, for her to look at Camilla without quietly disapproving. She tolerated Camilla for the sake of Charles, but she never trusted her, revealed a former palace official. She always said Camilla was better suited to the background, not the throne. William's position was far more delicate. As the future king, he had learnt to reconcile diplomatic and personal sorrow. Camilla had never attempted to replace his mother, but the fact that she now wore a crown, Diana never did left an unseen mark. Nonetheless, William maintained public respect, even when the press began casually referring to Camilla as Queen. But behind closed doors, William was certain of one thing: the crown could not withstand another generation of discord. In his opinion, the monarchy required someone that the populace not just tolerated, but admired. His wife, Catherine, had earned that confidence over the course of 2 decades. She had been the monarchy's stabilizing force. According to family sources, William approached Princess Anne first, carrying Queen Elizabeth's letter. They met secretly at Balmoral. There was no staff or aides, only family. Anne read the letter quietly, folded it neatly, and said, "It is time then. Mother always looked farther than the rest of us." From that point forward, a tacit partnership developed. Anne exploited her power within the palace to quell internal rebellion. Long-trusted courtiers, top advisors, and even crucial members of the Privy Council were brought into the loop, not with fanfare, but with facts. If the monarchy wanted to go on, it must do it with grace rather than ghosts. Meanwhile, William dealt with a more sensitive challenge: Charles. It was not easy. The king was divided between his commitment to his wife and his mother's heritage. He dreaded another public backlash, another conflagration. But William stood steadfast. It's not about family anymore. It's about survival. He reminded his father of Queen Elizabeth's comments, Catherine's allegiance, and the rising discontent among the people. Polls had started to move. The Commonwealth was restless, and with each error Camilla made, every perceived snub, every moment of aloofness, the monarchy's destiny crumbled a bit farther. Anne and William helped Charles understand that the speech was not a betrayal. It was a correction. By the time Charles took the platform, the decision had already been made. The family had already closed ranks. Camilla turned to search for supporters in the aftermath of her public humiliation, but none were present. Not Anne, not William, not even the king she believed would defend her. Because in the end, this wasn't all about the crown. It was about trust, legacy, and the calm but firm hands that now steered the monarchy's next chapter. Anne and William did not have to wear crowns to determine the future. They only had to decide who did. Moments of rupture are uncommon in a monarchy founded on tradition, but they are memorable. What happened at Buckingham Palace was more than just a shift in title or etiquette. It was a reclamation, a modest yet seismic upheaval that reshaped the future of the British crown. Camilla, once poised as Queen Consort, now finds herself in the shadows, her title hollowed out and her presence diminishing. Though she is still Charles's wife in name, the power, symbolism, and popular favor that once propelled her to the throne have gone from her grip. The royal website was secretly updated, replacing Queen Consort with the significantly more vague King's Wife. There was no news notice, there's no explanation. Only the cold precision of royal machinery correcting course. In contrast, Catherine continues to rise, not by force or ambition, but by becoming everything the monarchy urgently needed but didn't know how to ask for: dignity, restraint, unwavering loyalty. In her, the British public recognized not just Diana's legacy, but its growth. Diana resisted the system, but Catherine mastered it and shaped it from inside. Crowds gathered like pilgrims at her next public appearance, some holding placards that said, "Our Queen Now." Children presented flowers. Women wept. Throughout it all, Catherine smiled sweetly, said little, and marched forward, just as Queen Elizabeth had done. Within the palace walls, lines have been redrawn. Camilla no longer attends strategic engagements alongside other senior royals. Her name is absent from important planning briefings. Charles continues to dominate, but his greatest deed will be remembered as his correction rather than his crowning. A new age has started, not by scandal but via course adjustment. Not in an ego conflict, but in a single seismic sentence. Catherine, Princess of Wales, the rightful future Queen Consort. The monarchy, which had been wobbling under the weight of discord, has regained its balance. And the throne? It now rests under the lady it was originally supposed to uplift.